When debt enters our life, it's like the loud, inconsiderate roommate we never asked for. It keeps us awake at night and it gets in the way of us doing all the things we actually want to do. It's constantly reminding us that all those dollars we're earning aren't actually ours. Paychecks feel cut in half because we're still paying off the choices we made 5 years ago. Not to mention there's just never any guarantee that that future money we're counting on will actually arrive. In order to get to debt freedom, we need to understand where we are. How do we do that? Well, simple. We have to look back and see how we got here. Where did this debt even come from? We've identified 4 reasons you might have found yourself in this debt. Maybe your debt came to you for reasons out of your control. If this is the case, cue tornadoes. Tornado debt is the kind that hits you out of nowhere. You didn't even see it coming until it ripped the roof right off your innocent, unassuming bank account. These are life events that are sudden, dramatic, and potentially life-altering. And I'll just say, you don't get the choice whether or not you want to encounter a tornado. You just hunker down and try to survive. Maybe you're sitting in a pile of debt from a real tornado, or maybe it was one of those out-of-the-blue medical bills, accidents, expensive home repairs. Your only defense in that moment was to borrow money, but now we have to deal with the debris. Or maybe you fell in love. And man, they're worth it, but dang, they're expensive. Maybe you didn't have any debt, but they brought along their own credit cards and student loans with them. Either way, for better or worse, through thick and thin, not even from debt do you part. I will say the good thing about love debt is that it's slightly easier to pay off than normal debt because love. But it's still a pain to deal with because debt. But for some of us, our debt didn't happen to us. We brought it upon ourselves. And what does that debt look like? Well, believe it or not, it looks a whole lot like a frog. The boiling frog. We've all heard it. The story goes something like this. A frog jumps in a pot of room temperature water and the frog thinks nothing of it. He's swimming around thinking he's got it pretty good. Slowly, the temperature of the water increases. Because this change in temperature is so gradual, so slow, the frog just keeps swimming. Eventually, the water gets so hot that, well, the frog dies. Boiled to death, and the poor guy didn't even see it coming. Rest in peace, little pal. Is that sounding familiar? There wasn't any big moment that launched us into a heaping pile of debt. We just sat there and slowly let it happen until all of a sudden we realized we are deep, deep, deep in debt. This is way more common than any of us would like to think, and unfortunately, you're in good company. I, myself, was mindlessly backstroking in that same pot of water once upon a time. Then there's that old phrase, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. He felt like he could handle the load just fine until that last little straw did him in. And you may have had a similar experience. There was just that one final straw that brought you to watch this video course and think, yeah, I need to do something about this debt. So first, I'll say, sorry about your back. Second, I'm so glad you're here. This type of debt is hard to swallow though, because you're dealing with an accumulation of decisions that you've been piling on yourself, likely for quite some time. The camel's not carrying just one, but tons of frogs, and many of them he may have warmly invited to hop on board. Maybe you're starting to feel it. The shame, stress, guilt. And on top of that, now you feel like you don't have any control over your money and sometimes no control over your own life. But at this point, this is a systemic problem. It wasn't just one final straw that did you in, you brought aboard a whole load. And with all that on the table, it's time to ask yourself a big question. Is debt just a habit for you? In this day and age, it is really easy to go into debt, especially if you're trying to keep up with the Joneses. Guilty. You can swipe a credit card just about anywhere and easily spend more money than you make. We call this walking past zero. You make $30,000 a year, but whoops, you just spent 37. We can sign on a dotted line and trot right down into the negative, borrowing more money than we make in a year to buy a car that depletes in value as soon as we drive it off the lot. To turn this around, you need to develop a new habit. Don't walk past zero. Don't allow yourself to spend more than you make. You may not even realize where your overspending has happened, so now it's time to get creative and learn how to identify our true priorities so we can finally start to change our mindless or regretful spending. And I know, this sounds really hard, and maybe it even feels impossible, but you've already taken a huge step by recognizing your current money system isn't working. That's why you're here. And the good news is we know firsthand how to develop these new habits and get out of debt. And even better news, you can start right now. So enough with all these analogies and metaphors. You're ready to dig deep into some practical steps on how to finally kick this debt once and for all, right? Well, stick around for some serious debt payoff strategy, and let's send all these frogs, camels, and tornadoes packing.